tomorrow you will take the Unit 1 test, and it is cumulative. So it covers everything from the beginning of the year to what we have learned. But everything that you will review today will review all those standards. All right, number 1, in the diagram below, a square is graphed on the coordinate plane. A reflection over which line does not carry the square onto itself. So to graph x equals 5, you go to 5 on the x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so if I do a reflection across this dotted line, will it carry the square onto itself? No, the square would end up over here, okay? So this one does not carry the square onto itself. Okay, it said select all, so there's more than one answer. B says y equals 2, so I'll go to 2 on the y. All right, if you reflect over this line, the square would end up back on itself. This top half would go to the lower half, and the lower half would go to the top half. So that one does carry the square onto itself. All right, y equals x has a y-intercept of 0, 0, and goes up 1, over 1. All right, if you reflect over that line, this top triangle would go to the bottom triangle, and the bottom triangle would go to the top, so that one also works. And so y equals negative x starts here. Starts at 0, 0, and goes down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And so if you reflect over this line, the square is not going to end up back where it was. So A and D are correct for that one. Remember, anytime you can pause this video, you can go back and listen to a problem again, whatever you need to do. All right, number 2, triangle ABC and DEF are graphed on the set of axes. Which sequence of transformation maps triangle ABC onto triangle DEF? All right, I like to pick points for these. And A is at -2, -2, which is a bad point to experiment with because it's the same coordinate twice, so you can't tell if X and Y have switched places. So let's look at point C. C is at -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -6. And C has to match up with F because that's the order they gave them to us. C has to match with F. All right, so F is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 6. Okay? All right, so a reflection over the x-axis, that would make the y multiply by -1, so -6 would become +6. And then a reflection over the y-axis, you multiply the x by -1. -1 times -1 is +1. So A is correct. Okay. B, 180-degree rotation. So that is -x, -y. And then if we reflect it over the line y equals x, they have to switch places. And if you go back to the 2 points we picked, did x and y switch places? No, so B doesn't work, and C and D do not either. Okay. Number 3, on the coordinate plane point J, -2, -1 is reflected over y equals 2. The point J prime is reflected over the line y equals x. What is the ordered pair of point J prime? Okay, so there is no rule for reflecting over y equals 2. You have to graph it. Now, you were all supposed to have graph paper for this course. It was on the syllabus. So go ahead and get a sheet out. You can draw one on your paper, but I highly recommend using graph paper on the test tomorrow to make sure it's exact. Okay? All right. So y equals 2. Y equals 2 is this line right here. And the point -2, -1, -2, -1 is j. So if I want to reflect it over that line, it's going to go from the bottom of it to the top. So right now it's down 1, 2, 3. So I need to go 3 above. 1, 2, 3. So that's j prime. So j prime is at -2, and then up 1, 2, and then 3 more. 3, 4, 5. So j prime is at -2, 5. Now j prime is reflected across the line y equals x. So they have to switch places. That's the rule for that. 5, -2. So that's your answer. Again, feel free to go back and rewatch that whole problem being worked out. Number 4, what is the correct expression for x? X is a exterior angle. Remember that the exterior angle equals the sum of the two remote interior angles. So x equals z plus y, or I'll write y plus z, put it in alphabetical order. So that answer is D. Number 5, find the ordered pair rule that represents all the transformations in one rule. Rotate 270 degrees counterclockwise, then reflect over the y-axis. All right, so you always start with the xy. 270 counterclockwise is the same as 90 clockwise, and that rule is y comma -x. Then we have to reflect this one over the y-axis. Well, when you reflect over the y-axis, the x-coordinate, not the letter x, the x-coordinate becomes negative. -y, -x. So that's your answer. Number 6, given that B is the midpoint of AD and EC, prove triangle ABE is congruent to triangle DBC. All right, so when you write a proof, you have statements and reasons. All right, so the given comes first. B is the midpoint of AD and EC. And the reason for that is given. Pause if you need more time to write. Okay, since B is the midpoint, that means I can mark things. If B is the midpoint of AD, that means this one and this one are congruent. If B is the midpoint of EC, that means these two are congruent. So I'm going to write that down. AB line segment AB is congruent to line segment BD. Definition of midpoint. And EB is congruent to BC. Okay? All right, what else can I mark on this picture? I can mark vertical angles. So angle ABE is congruent to angle DBC. Vertical angles. And number 4, I now have side angle side. So what I'm trying to prove, triangle ABE is congruent to triangle DBC, side angle side. All right, number 7, triangle EGF is graphed below. Triangle EGF will be rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin and will be reflected across the y-axis, producing an image triangle. Which additional transformation will map the triangle back onto the original triangle? Okay, so I'm going to pick a point. So point E, -5, 3. Okay? It says triangle EGF will be rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So that means if it's 90 degrees counterclockwise, that is the rule, negative yx. So my point becomes -3, -5. That is E prime. Then it will be reflected across the y-axis. So now I need to reflect this over the y-axis. So I multiply this one by -1. So that is where I end up at. 3, -5. Okay? All right. Now it says, which additional transformation will map the image triangle back to the original? So I need this point to go back to that one. Well, if you notice, if I want to go back to that one, they need to switch places. They need to switch places, and, oh, that's it. Neither one of them changed signs. So all they need to do is switch places. Well, what does that? What switches their places? A reflection over y equals x. So that answer is D. All right, and number 8, find the ordered pair that represents the transformations in one rule. Remember when you see this open circle, it's a composition, and you do this one first. All right, you do that one first. So you reflect in the x-axis first. So that rule, so you always start with xy. When you reflect over the x-axis, the rule is x -y. And then I need to go 90 degrees counterclockwise. So now you're just looking at this one. So 90 degrees counterclockwise, I know they switch places. And the negative goes in the front, which means if I multiply this by -1, it becomes positive. So that is your answer.